So very recently, I've started to dive a little deeper into the world of comic books again. It's been a little while, but since I was more actively reading issues and Reddit threads, but recently I came upon a very specific, dastardly feat that one of the DC villains committed against a particular hero that really inspired me to look more into the rabbit hole of terrible things that comic book supervillains have done. And I decided that it could be really fun to try to make a list of some of not only like the most deprived, but like some of the stranger deprived things, and also like things that are, I guess, like less commonly covered. Obviously we have like a few dozen instances of characters in comic books, like nuking planets, solar systems, multiverses. But those don't necessarily stand out as particularly vile in a traditional sense. Like with vile things, there needs to be like some element of like just why. Killing somebody is already a pretty heinous thing, but some of these characters just like have shown us that they go above and beyond when it comes to their villainy. And I think just to establish, I am not going to be going over some of the most famous, right? I think we've all are been like pretty well acquainted with the menace that is Reverse Flash. Throwing children down flights of stairs, making his brother unexist. He's definitely in the Hall of Fame of like petty weird things that villains have done. And then of course like the Joker shooting Barbara Gordon and paralyzing her, very famous comic, maybe one of the most famous of all time. Not going to go over stuff like that. And again, not everything on this list is going to be like a definitive list of the like worst things that comic book characters have done. There are so many, and it's such a subjective thing. But this is my list of, I don't want to say my favorite, but maybe the ones that really like took me back, the made me like it shocked me the most when I was reading about them. So starting with number 10, and we're going to start nice and light. This is, kind of like a little more fun, silly-hearted. It definitely gets a lot worse than this, and this is already pretty bad. So the premise is Thanos met a kid at his birth and decided that he just wanted to ruin his life. Just that simple. At his like 13th or 14th birthday, he stole his phone and sent a text to his girlfriend that made her break up with him. Later on, he would go on to poison the punch bowl at his birthday party, so all of his friends died. Pretty sure he killed his father by throwing a car at him, flooded his apartment, just really doing his best to absolutely ruin this kid's life for absolutely no reason. And this is levels of menace that Reverse Flash would be proud of. It's even kind of worse than Reverse Flash, because at least Reverse Flash has like a vendetta against Barry for not a valid but a specific reason. But with Thanos, he picked this guy out at birth and just decided he wanted to ruin his life, and that gets him a spot in maybe the petty Hall of Fame. For number 9, we have another Thanos feat. This time he found out that there was a woman in the Marvel universe who was going to find the cure for cancer, and so he went back in time, changed a few key elements of her life so that she just wouldn't go on to be a doctor and to cure cancer. And if that wasn't already bad enough, preventing the cure of cancer being found is like a pretty vile thing. On her deathbed, when she was minutes away from death, Thanos showed up, wanted to show her in her last moments all of the things she could have done if he didn't interfere with her. Just to show, like how wasted her life was and how it was all his fault. He had to make sure she knew. And just absolutely deranged stuff that we see from this guy. For number 8, now talking about cures for diseases, we have Lex Luthor. So Lex Luthor has a sister who, after like an unspecified accident, becomes a paraplegic. She's unable to move without like a wheelchair, and she is really unable to speak as well. Like fluently, she like mumbles words occasionally. But Lex, being the kind-hearted and good brother that he is, cures her disease. He finds he just finds the necessary chemicals, mixes them together in a flask, and injects them into her, and she's completely cured. But of course, he would not be making this list if that was the end of the story. Right after he cured her, he immediately re-injected her with the same disease that she had just a second ago, and she is then rendered a paraplegic yet again. Why does he do this? Kind of just to prove that he can. He's like an absolute menace for this. And the weirdest part, maybe the craziest part, is he does not have like a bad relationship with his sister. His sister was like the only member of his family who really even treated him nicely. And heaven knows that he definitely did not treat the rest of his family members well either. But, she was nice to him, and yet he just has not a care in the world. Absolute menace. For number 7, we have another Lex Luthor fee, and this one is just stranger. It's objectively not as bad as the previous one, but this one is its own level of unhinged. So Lex Luthor, in Lex Luthorian fashion, would, and this is something he's done apparently multiple times, go to a bar, or I guess what do you call those? A diner, and he would sit down at the booth. He would chat it up with the waitress, hit her with his riz. Apparently, the bald look was something that they really fell for back in the 80s. But, he would flirt with them, and then he would say, I want to give you like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If you just listen to me here, run off with me, leave your work. I'm rich beyond your wildest imaginations. I can change your life forever. Right. And then when the waitress goes back to take a phone call or to make the decision or whatever, he always consistently makes sure he leaves right before they're able to return and actually either agree to the conditions or turn it down. And in his car ride back, we learned that Lex Luthor has done this to numerous women. In fact, it's just a hobby. He goes out here just to do this. And she even remarks oh, you spent longer than you normally do, meaning this is probably something he's done dozens of times. And he says that, the reason he does it, he really revels in the fact that the waitress would, quote unquote, never know what her final choice would have been. And that question and knowing what might have been is going to torment them for the rest of their life. And wow, just a complete random stranger just did it for no reason other than he could. And maybe he just really revels in people's misery. It's just absolutely insane behavior, and that's why he's just the GOAT. So number 6, all right, now this is where things go from funny to pretty horrendous. This one's pretty simple, not a lot of explanation. Carnage, the Spawn symbiote, Venom, he bonds with the serial killer Cletus Cassidy. Very popular character, very psychopathic, does a lot of crazy stuff, kind of like the Marvel's version of the Joker in some sense, except maybe even some of his crazy feats are even worse. Like this one right here, threw a baby out a window. You can't make this up. In fact, you can see from this picture, he broke the window with the baby. That's pretty crazy. Throwing babies out windows is definitely earning of a spot on this list. And for number 5, speaking of throwing babies out windows, I mean, if you thought the previous one was bad, just you wait. Red Skull, definitely no stranger to, his own menacing activities, especially given his origin. He's definitely not a good dude. And it's really shown in the scene that I'm referencing where he breaks into a soldier's house, ties the soldier up, and tells his wife that, if you don't kill your husband, I'm going to kill your child. Gives him a pair of rusty scissors and says you have to kill him. So eventually she does. And of course, Red Skull, not being a man of his word, just throws her baby outside the window of their high-rise apartment. That's it. He just did that. He just killed the baby to traumatize a woman for no reason. He got what he wanted. He decided that he needed more. Just totally vile stuff, but honestly to be expected from a character like the Red Skull. For number 4, and man, it's a lot of children-related stuff. This one's a little more famous. I think most people who have a decent amount of experience with comics, especially Aquaman, will probably recognize this. But Black Manta captures the son of Aquaman, puts him in a some sort of container thing that he slowly fills with air. because, Atlantean needs to breathe water, whatever, right? To suffocate him, and he succeeds. Kid dies. Makes Aqualad watch. Pretty terrible stuff. You can't make this up. It's just absolutely dastardly what these villains have been up to. Yeah. Number 3. And if the previous 3 entries weren't bad enough, this is where I think things really start to step up a bit in depravity. Dr. Doom made a deal with the demon to give him unlimited strength or some sort of power boost, and the requirement was that he sacrifices the woman that he loves. So he flays the skin off of his then girlfriend. The skin wraps around his body and forms his new suit. So he removes the skin of his wife, killing her, and wears her skin as armor. Pretty bad stuff. Number 2, anybody who grew up reading the old X-Men comics is probably familiar with the Blob. A fat dude, likes to roll around, jump around, bounce. Usually, he's a pretty big physical threat, but pretty self-contained. But not in the Ultimate Universe. And I did censor the panel because I don't like looking at it. But in the Ultimate Universe, he kills and eats the Wasp. Yeah, really, honestly, no jokes to be made there. Pretty terrible stuff. Not very common in comic books for a character to eat another character. But the Blob did that, and that, definitely earns him a spot at number 2. And for number 1, and you may be thinking, what tops eating another person? And maybe it doesn't, but this is the moment that really inspired me to make this video and to really do more of a deep dive. Because this was the first time I'd heard of it. I think most Green Lantern fans would know what I'm talking about here, but Kyle Rayner comes home from, a day of stopping crime, as he does. He was planning to go on a picnic with his girlfriend, very cutesy stuff. Sees a note from his girlfriend, surprise for you in the fridge, love, Alex. Goes to check what's in the fridge, and it is the body of his dead girlfriend stuffed into a fridge. Done by none other than Major Force, who, not a super popular character, and this is probably, what he's most famous for, because, what kind of, he doesn't even go into his house and just kills his girlfriend, already traumatizing enough, but, he was sitting there and he was like, you know what, let's have fun with this, I really want to make sure Kyle Rayner is as surprised and as traumatized as he can possibly be, and, honestly, such a legendary moment. Even developed a term in the comic book community after this called fridging, where you kill essentially you kill a character's love interest for the sake of character development and growth. But yeah, pretty tough stuff. You hate to see it, but definitely one of the greatest and most underrated instances of menace activity in comic books. Now, obviously, there's plenty of depraved activities that are actions that these villains have taken over the years that I haven't really been able to cover here. And it's just such a fun topic. If you're watching this and you have a decent in-depth knowledge of comic books and some of the maybe lesser known heinous things that characters have done, and you want to drop them in the comments, please do. I absolutely love hearing them. It's a weird a weird fascination, when you're watching one of those videos on Instagram Reels and you just can't take your eyes away from it. To reading this list, it's horrifying, it's terrible. Nobody should really enjoy it, but there's just some weird level of fascination just knowing what kind of depraved activities were written into comics over the past 70, maybe even 90 or so years now. But yeah, that's all I've got for this video. I think it was fun to make. Even more fun to talk about. So, thank you.